Okay, so my name is Lars Bendix. I come from computer science in Lund. Since 2001, we've used Agile in our teaching. So we have a project course that uses extreme programming. It's called Programming in a Group. And I came to Lund in 2001, and when I saw this, I jumped on it immediately. So my students in Aalborg in Denmark had introduced me to extreme programming and Ken Beck a couple of years before, and that looked interesting. It looked similar to things I had seen in the beginning of the 90s when I was doing my PhD in Pisa in Italy. So I got involved. I was part of designing the project and the course. I've been teaching parts of the course. I've been acting as a customer on these projects, student projects. As all Agile teams, also our students need coaching. And the cheapest way for us to do it is to use other students. So we need to educate also coaches. And I've been involved in that as well, and so much that this year I've taken over the coaching course. Besides that, I also do configuration management. Actually, the Agile part is a hobby, and my main interest is configuration management. I've got 25 odd years of experience in teaching and doing research on configuration management. And for some years, I've also enjoyed a fruitful collaboration, both for teaching and research with people from Softhouse. And I guess this today is research.
Well, to you, Lars, it's research. To me, it's more of a practical experience. I've been working with configuration management since 1994, and with Agile methods since 2005. I came in contact with Lars when I moved back to Skåne, and we have made a fruitful collaboration since then. And as you already guessed, I guess, this presentation, I mean, we are two CM nerds and Agile interests, so this will be about CM and Agile methods. And we will focus today on distributed development. But Lars, to start with, what is Agile to you?
Well, I guess that you're not looking for the dictionary
Not really, no.
definition of what Agile is. So it's difficult to give a definition of Agile. You can ask 10 people and you'll get about 12 or 13 different opinions. So if you're doing pre-programming, are you Agile? If you add a little bit of test-driven development, are you Agile then? What if you do Scrum, except for a couple of things that you don't like in Scrum or that you don't understand? Are you then Agile? So it's like there's been a fight between these fundamentalists that say either you do all of it and you do it like we tell you, and then you're Agile, otherwise you're not. And the pragmatics saying, well, if you think it's good, then you can do it, and if you don't like it and it's not useful, then don't do it. And Ken Beck was sort of giving the roots of it, saying that being Agile means that we can act quickly on changes. And that's not very much more precise than just saying Agile, but we're getting there. And in 2000, he came out with a book called Extreme Programming Explained, where he came up with an explanation of what extreme programming is. 5 years later, he put out the Bible. That is still called Extreme Programming Explained, second edition, a complete rewrite. He expanded it from 12 to 24 practices. He divided the practices up into primary practices and corollary practices. So primary practices are those where you can pick and choose. If you want to do pair programming, by all means go ahead and do it. No problem. If you want to do test-driven development, no problem. You can do that if it's useful for you. But the corollary practices, you should be a little careful, like daily deployment. Well, daily deployment is a really good thing, but don't do it unless you have the supporting practices in place. Otherwise, it'll hurt you. And I bet that Ken Beck talked to a lot of people and took in their experience and turned them into these extra practices that he came up with. And he also had to dig deeper than that, because what he did in the first book was sort of defining the practices on the surface. And I bet that a lot of people ask him, but what is actually the philosophy behind. And he dug down deep, and in this book he explains that his agile thinking is built on 5 fundamental values: communication, simplicity, feedback, courage, and respect. So if you want to be agile, then these 5 values should guide what you do in your daily life. So,
yeah.
What about distribution? I mean, we do a little bit of distribution on we do agile by the book on these student projects. We also do a little bit of distribution. So actually we cannot afford to have a dedicated customer to each team. So we have one customer for each 3 or 4 teams. And it doesn't really work. So I'm not so fancy about this distributed agile. What about you?
Well, distribution to me is more of a sliding scale than on or off. I mean, you can take a team and they are co-located where they sit together in a room, but as soon as you split them in 2 rooms, really they are distributed, because what you do is you put a restriction on the communication. And as you said, Kent Beck, main value here was one of them was communication, and fast feedback was another one. So as soon as we split the teams, different rooms, different buildings, different cities, different countries, we put restrictions on that communication and makes it harder to get feedback fast. And then again, we can also look at cultural differences that makes it harder to communicate. You can have time zones, we can have different working hours. People like to come early in the morning or stay late at night. Then we get the same behavior. It's get harder to communicate. So really, what comes down to distribution is more of a communication problem to me.
So what you're telling me is that when I'm a customer for these 4 teams, then I should sort of ditch this old mobile phone, which has a Danish mobile number, get myself a smartphone with a Swedish mobile number, and then my students will start calling the customer and emailing the customer, and I can respond immediately.
I think they'd be happy, yeah.
I don't know what my wife says about buying a new phone, so I'm happy with this. What about another practice like collective code ownership or shared code?
Well, Kent Beck defines also that if you're going to do collective code ownership, you need continuous integration to be able to make it work. And continuous integration in a distributed environment gets tricky, because we need to communicate about what gets integrated. And as CMers, we can do a lot of help here. We can help with identifying all the artifacts that we are handling. We can help by defining all the baselines that we create every time we integrate. And we need to make these routines and tools simple to use and really easy to get through with, and really get the communication flowing in the organization. And I think we can help a lot there.
So what about meta information?
Yeah, that again, we need to store that as well. Get the meta information about the artifacts and the deliveries and the integration steps. Get it stored and get it visible. Get it out to everybody. We also need to know what events in the development work should trigger other events, like a build, for example. So when you integrate code, you bring it home to your own environment, and you integrate it with your own changes. Trigger a build automatically if
so why
if
would
possible.
you want to do a build when you do an update?
Well, a lot of organization has problems with trust. You don't trust the other developers to that their changes are as good as your own ones. But it really comes down to when I pull down changes, even though they are tested and have been quality approved and all, I need to make sure that they work with my changes. And if we stop doing upfront design and upfront planning, we need to make sure that they work together. So
yeah.
that's why I want to trigger a build.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, but do you plan iterations, or maybe we should talk about that on the open space?
Of course we do. I mean, we do extreme programming by the book on these courses, and of course I teach a course in configuration management, and the very core of configuration management is handling changes and doing these planning. So whether you're talking about sprint planning or planning game like we have in extreme programming, that's what we do.
Yeah.
So we have a process, we are handling change request. In Agile it's very easy because we don't distinguish between change requests, bug reports or requirements. Everything is stories, and we just handle them as a change request. We have a process for that. As if you know something about configuration management, you know that we have to document it, we have to evaluate how much time and resources it takes.
Hey, Lars, time is out. We need to speak about this in open space instead.
We can talk more about this on the open space. So.
Okay. Thank you.